would you even say it's positive, or would you just say it's neutral?
So in order to essentially change and shift your paradigm, you need to actually create a neutral charge, right? And so let's just use procrastination as an example. There's two ways that this can affect people. Some people, and this is based on your own personal constitution. Some people are naturally in a state of lethargy. So what we need to do is, they'll be aware of, okay, they're procrastinating and they're aware of their habits, because everybody is. But what we need to do is essentially spin that energy up from that very low, sluggish, low vibration into a neutral vibration, or perhaps even raise it higher to then bring it down using your breath. Conversely, you could also have somebody who is quite hyper, almost someone who exhibits like ADHD, or there are people who I work with who have ADHD, and they're constantly up, they're constantly ticking and thinking of a plethora of things, and then they never get it done because their thoughts don't allow them to actually complete their actions or their tasks. We need to then catch that moment, bring it down to neutralize it, and perhaps even go a little bit further depending on how severe their state of lethargy or, just very high activation is. And then we use the breath essentially to create this pendulum and a seesaw to bring it back up to neutral, to create what I call the singularity. I do a lot of this in the meditations that I do. And in the singularity, you're creating space to now bring focus to essentially whatever's going to move the needle for the individual. Therefore, you're able to neither beat or destroy, but you're simply coexisting with procrastination, because it's just a state of being. That's all it is, right? These labels that we assign so much importance to are just sort of like fragments of one present state of being, right? And so when we can work with that, we can harmonize and synergize it, it actually doesn't affect us anymore.
Sure, yeah. That's really interesting that you can have both sides of it. Yeah, you can have that apathetic side of it, like, oh, why do I even bother? Or you can have that side of it, like, oh, I'm going to do everything all at once.
Yeah.
And I can observe both of those actually in myself at times.
Yeah, same here, dude.
Like, too many ideas, I'm like, oh, I can deal with that shit for sure.
Pretty much.
But at the same time, I can't even put up a fucking chin-up bar inside of a house. But then when I did it, and finally I'm like, oh, because there were so many things in my life at that point when I was going back to the chin-up bar experience, that I just felt like I couldn't get going with. And I think in a sense it was kind of like I saw it as a sign to just be like, okay, do you know what? I don't need to do anything right now. I just need to be present with my family and raise my baby daughter and give her all the attention that I have. But then there's me wanting to do all the things that I normally would do. I work out and build projects and programs and things like that. Yeah. So it's interesting as well that you have that pendulum, and you often need to take something past the center point to bring it back. So if you're like -7, like in the apathy, you need to kind of go past 0, that neutral point, up to like +5, +6, so you can then bring it back down. I think that's the case with so many things. Like if you're a very agreeable person, for an example, it's just one example, for you to find natural balance and the right level of agreeable/disagreeableness, you kind of have to go the other way too far and become this really disagreeable person, which most people might see as not nice.
Yeah.
But then to bring it back down to the level of going, okay, I'm actually just having healthy boundaries, but still being pleasant and nice to people and helping people when they actually need help. And it's not an inconvenience to me, and I can actually do that rather than just people pleasing the whole time. That's so interesting. I think that you found that this works too with this methodology. Yeah, I find that really interesting.
Yeah, well, you see, it's just one modality, right? I mean, I'll give you a prime example. It's like, it's with everything in life, right? I quite aptly call this one practice that I use when I'm taking people through this meditation. I call it navigating entropy, by basically creating order and chaos using the breath. So we understand how we can take ourselves from a state of, serenity, just like routine, structure, discipline, order. And then we break out of that and we create a sense of chaos or, heightened awareness, activation, right? We start spinning that energy up. And from there, we're able to weave in between the two states of being and then create the singularity, create the space, which is what creates that not the negative, but the neutral charge. And I find that breath work is the one variable that every human being has control over, right? So if you're looking at, say, for example, let's just say, you're a people pleaser, okay? Naturally, you're a very agreeable person. When you go to work, someone asks you, oh, hey, man, would you mind, just like making everybody a cup of coffee? And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, it gets to your lunch break, and then you go to like the staff canteen or whatever it is, and you're really looking forward to like this type of sandwich. And somebody else says, oh, hey, listen, do you mind if I have that? I haven't eaten all day. Even though you're on the same boat, but you're just like, okay, sure, whatever. And you can see how this creates the stack of, oh, you're a people pleaser, which can then, especially for, I think, a lot of men, can actually feed into this narrative of you're weak, you're this, you're that, insert like negative belief system. You don't have control over the variables on things such as, well, if you were to say no to somebody, how are they going to react? Or, you don't have control over the variable of, for example, is there enough coffee to go around, right? When you're making drinks for everybody else, you don't have enough control over those variables. But what you do have control over is whether you enter a state of fight, flight, or navigate the lands between using breath. And so that's one, I think one key element that I like to really focus on, because everybody has control of it.